Welcome to my review of Zanac Neo from the Zanac X Zanac compilation on the PlayStation 1. And yeah, this compilation disc actually includes two games. It has the very old Zanac game from arcades, way back. And I didn't play that version on here, so I'm not reviewing that. I'm only reviewing Zanac Neo, which is really the main attraction, because you can play the old Zanac on main, but this Zanac Neo is an exclusive game only on this compilation. So it's actually pretty fucking hidden. I mean, it's a real kind of game that you would never know about. If you didn't know about this compilation, you would never come across this game. And this was a game that I beat a little while ago. I'm definitely some months ago, and I remember thinking it was great. Like, after I beat it, I ended up thinking it was a great game, which kind of spoils my opinion on the game, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than that. So, yeah, what was cool because, like, I didn't know about this version of the game at all, and I wasn't really familiar too much with the old arcade version. I mean, I probably heard of it before, but I never really played it. But it's a very simple, very different kind of game. But this version really updates it. And while I can't make a comparison on, what this game takes from the original, because I really didn't play it much at all, what I can say is, on its own, it really is an awesome shooter. And it has a lot of depth. When I first played this game, I played it as a regular shooter, just grabbing power-ups, and I didn't really understand the mechanics of the game. But there's actually a pretty simple mechanic that is... once you know it makes the game really addictive, and it makes the flow of the game feel fucking awesome once you understand the way the mechanic works. And it's a simple mechanic of what you want to do is you want to grab power-ups for the period of invincibility that they grant you every time you grab a power-up. So what you basically want to do is you want to, waste your weapon when it's about to run out and then grab the next power-up immediately. And you basically want to keep chaining power-ups in that way. As soon as your invincibility frames are wearing off or your weapon is wearing off, you want to be ready to grab the next power-up. And by doing that, you can chain it together to the point where, you can have your ship directly inside the boss. Which sounds kind of fucking perverted, but it actually works really well because you can be parked right inside the boss and, pump all your bullets into it. And, you can do massive damage that way. So, and you don't have to try to dodge anything because, while you have that invincibility frame, you're totally safe. So you can just you can play. It's not really a reckless playing. It's part of the game. You have to try to set yourself up to grab those power-ups to keep your invincibility going. So you kind of want to let power-ups linger on the screen for a while so you can grab them at the last moment. That's a big part of chaining them together. And that's when I really needed to learn that for the last few stages, especially this final stage. Here I'm going to show the entire final stage. You're going to see how long this stage is. This is the whole final stage where it said final area a little while ago. And now from this point on, you're going to see how long this stage is. And this is where your skills are really going to be tested, and you're really going to pretty much have to use the mechanic of chaining power-ups together. So you're going to see me doing that here. And I thought that would be a good demonstration to just show it, full scale in the review. Since it's a unique mechanic, and this is definitely a game I thought I should cover because I don't see it anywhere. I didn't even know about it. So I am kind of trying to dig up some of the obscure games that I either really enjoyed or, they were mediocre, maybe even shitty games. But, just obscure games that I haven't really seen reviewed. Because I have a lot of playthroughs now up on the channel, and I'm editing down these playthroughs to make these reviews. So there's a lot of content that I have to choose from now to review. And as I said, I only review games that I already completed. So, I'm not going to just try a game out briefly and then review it. Just to get the footage, and say that I'm familiar with the game. But yeah, you're going to see that, each power-up, your weapons behave differently, as they should with each power-up. But some of them are pretty unique. Like, there's one, each power-up is numbered, 1, 2, 3, etc. And, there's a certain one that makes your ship really slow, but it makes your shots really powerful. So the trade-off is that your ship moves slow as shit, but you do massive damage. So you actually want to utilize that a lot of times and, put out those powerful shots, but as soon as it's about to wear off, you want to have another power-up ready to grab in the environment. The trick is you have to move very, very, very well to get between the bullets and grab the next power-up without dying. But once you grab that power-up, you have a few seconds of invincibility to utilize. So you want to, utilize that while it's still working, and then, grab the next power-up right when it's about to wear off. So the game is all about getting that perfect rhythm going with the power-ups. And that's one thing that you could play this game and not realize how it works. I just figured it out by playing it mostly, and eventually I figured out that was the way I had to play the game. I may have read something about it later on, but the game doesn't explain that to you at any point. Maybe the manual does. I don't know because I'm playing on emulation. But I know that when I first played it, I already thought it was a very good shooter just playing it normally without realizing that I had to really chain the power-ups. I knew that the power-ups gave me invincibility, but I didn't realize the importance of trying to chain them together back to back and just keep it going. Because you want to keep that invincibility going for as long as you can. That's really the key. But you're going to have to do a lot of intense bullet dodging and shit like you see here. You're going to see how difficult it gets. It's a very tough game. Now, the whole game I wouldn't say is super hard, but the last few stages, mainly the final stage, was the real initial roadblock for me that took me a while to beat. And in my actual playthrough of the game, I have, it's listed how long it took me to complete the game and all that, and all the details on that, which I'll post a link, in the description to my actual legit playthrough of the game. I edited out my lost continues on that, so it's pretty much straight to the point. But it does show, it shows deaths, just not lost continues that were unsuccessful. But yeah, you see how dense these stages get, and it goes on for a while. Now, you can pick from a few different ships, which I show in the beginning of the review. And, they're not, radically different, but you'll probably find one you like. I ended up liking this green one. I seem to do better with this one. And I believe the ships also, the power-ups that they grab each behave differently, too, in some ways. So you want to experiment with the different ships and, and try them out. I don't remember if the ships have a different default speed. I think you may adjust your ship speed manually with one of the buttons, but, there are certain, smaller details I don't remember, but, at the core, I pretty much remember the core of the game and what made it good, A lot of the bosses are similar to this, where you have just a shitload of turrets, and this is kind of based on the old simple design of, really old 80s shooters where, before Gradius and all that shit, really old 80s shooters where you just had, basically just turrets and shit. And that was all the boss was just a bunch of turrets you had to take out. So it's kind of based on that whole theme. So a lot of the bosses are very simple, but there are bosses that break that mold, that are more like standard, 90s era boss types, that style. And the final boss is very cool. And it's more in that 90s style. But a lot of the bosses are going to be like this, where it's just a bunch of turrets you have to take out. But it's very difficult because, you do have to dodge through these mazes of bullets. And like I said, the key is grabbing those power-ups and chaining those invincibility frames. And keeping in mind that every time you grab the power-up, you get a power shot as well that you can unleash. So you want to use that very, very effectively and very quickly and precisely as you're grabbing the invincibility. So really the key is to chain everything together with those power-ups. Before I even understood that about the game, I thought the game was really good. And I really enjoyed it. But once I understood that mechanic, the game felt, like it had much more depth. And the pacing was much more exciting once I figured that out. And I would say that was pretty much a necessity to beat the final stage, because the final stage is very difficult even when you know that. So the game really is designed around you understanding how the mechanics work. But, of course, just experimenting and playing games that I just find randomly. A lot of times I don't have information initially. And, even when you try to look up information on a lot of these old games, you're not going to find it too easily unless you really dig. And some games are very obscure and just don't have a lot of info. This game does have some information on it, but the power-up chaining is not something that's immediately obvious, at least for me. So that's what really made the game, really opened it up for me and made me really enjoy it and appreciate it more. So at least if you've seen this review, you're going to have that little bit of knowledge now. And You'll understand how the game works from the beginning, because it's a simple thing to understand, but if you don't know it, it can make the game way fucking harder. So you definitely want to know that going into this game. But yeah, you can see this is a very dense final level. There's a lot going on, and it goes on for a long time. There's a lot of boss fights in this level. The game as a whole kind of flows like this, with lots of boss fights. You fight regular enemies for a while, but then you fight bosses, and there's a lot of them. All the levels are pretty much broken up in this same structure. This one is just very, very long. I think it's like over 12 or 15 minute long stage, and you only have a few lives. Now, of course, if you're putting out a lot of damage and killing a lot of shit, you'll earn a few 1-ups. So, another strategy is to try to keep your combo chains going by killing enemies quickly. And if you do that frequently enough, you may earn yourself a few 1-ups, which will save your fucking ass. So they can definitely help. You want to have a few extra 1-ups in the bank, but. So I tried to do that as well. That was, when I did finally beat the game, I was chaining stuff together, chaining my kills together pretty rapidly to get, I think, more points, which probably, I think that's what gave me more 1-ups. It seemed to give me more 1-ups by playing like that. So I believe that helped me to finally be successful. Now, of course, I use save and load states to practice only on certain segments, and I definitely practiced segments on this stage. The final boss especially can be very, very hard, as it has multiple forms, and it's very hard to dodge. And you'll see that. I'm going to show that at the end of this stage. You'll see that. Now, another thing that makes this game difficult is a common thing with a lot of shooters that try to have a lot of graphics on screen. It makes bullets hard to see. So, you are going to die because sometimes you don't see shit that blends into the background. It's just part of it. But aside from that, the game will keep you hyper-focused and engaged. You're not going to get bored when playing this game. You're going to be very engaged in what's going on. So you're not going to be too concerned that maybe it lacks some variety in the different styles of enemies and all that, because it's based on an older style of game, and it's, like I said, so engaging and fast-paced that it never really lets up for a moment. So, you're not going to get fucking bored with it and, wish there was more variety or anything like that, I don't think. I was really surprised by this game because it came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea about Zanac and Neo. So this is on the Zanac X Zanac compilation, which it may be Japan only. I'm not 100% sure. I probably should have looked into it before I did the review. But I do these pretty spontaneously by editing out gameplay footage from my actual playthroughs, and then I just do some commentary over them. Sometimes I do a little research to refresh my memory, but this one I just kind of banged out quick. So yeah, now you have the last boss. So you'll see its multiple forms. First you take out these brains. And even this is challenging. This is not easy. But it gets very hard toward the end. And this, like I said, this level is really going to test your skill. But when you complete the game, you're going to feel very satisfied because you beat a really, a really challenging final stage. It's going to make you feel satisfied when you beat the game. Like you really kind of earned it and developed your skills, It comes together in a very meaningful, kind of climactic way. It's very nice the way the game comes together at the end. And I really enjoyed, concluding this fucking game. Because it was, this last stage was definitely fucking pissing me off, too. But in a good way, though, too, because it was improving my skill. And it made me delve more into the mechanics of the game with the invincibility chaining and all that. So it did force me to learn the mechanics. Which is what a good game, a great game, that's what a great game does. It makes you use the mechanics that are designed into the game. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of dodging here. Very, very, precise. But there are somewhat patterns to it, but there's also, in my case, I was doing a lot of on-the-spot adaptation. But I did practice this, and there were certain patterns that I could kind of replicate. But I wasn't able to memorize it to the point where I knew exactly where to place my shit. So it was kind of half and half, adapting in the moment and memorizing some patterns. Now, I'm sure speedrunners would probably memorize the entire fucking game. I'm sure you can memorize this game because it's an old-style game, and usually these patterns can be memorized. But I wasn't able to do that in the time I played it. So it was like a mix of half and half, mostly adapting in this game and just adapting to what was happening and trying to grab my power-ups and get my invincibility frames as you see me doing to try to survive. But very satisfying final boss. The music is fucking great. Now, I don't show music in these reviews because I haven't figured out a way to put music in my reviews without muffling my voice. You know, I'm not advanced in my editing at this stage, so that is probably something you're going to see from me down the line. But as fucking stubborn as I am, it may take years before I start doing more advanced editing. So it all depends. But if these reviews do take off and I get a lot of feedback, of course I'll look into doing that sooner to make them more enjoyable to the viewers. But my shit is pretty raw, footage and just my raw opinion on a lot of shit. So at this point, my playthroughs are not really that refined. They're just beating extreme modes and regular games and shit like that. Tutorials. Now, I did refine a few of my tutorials. But you can see that these are, that this final boss really does test your skill. And it's a nice way to conclude the game. Great final boss fight. And great game. Like I said, a lot of the bosses are very standard. It's just a bunch of turrets and shit like that. But you're not going to be complaining about it because the game just tests your skill so much. So I'd give this game an 8.5 out of 10. It's a great shooter. Definitely one that you should not miss if you enjoy these types of shooters. Thanks for watching.